Hi, I'm Emily Downs. Welcome to Emily's Hearth. You're here in the diner with me. This is an old Silk City diner. It was originally bought, owned, and operated by a woman in the 90s. Her name was Sadie Weed. She was an incredible humanitarian. It's really interesting to me, actually, that this diner that's been here since the 20s was originally woman owned and operated, and now here almost 100 years later, almost to the day, I think it was 2024 that she originally bought this diner. It's again woman owned and operated. So that is really, really special here. I feel like the spirit is just sort of, she's just around, you know?
Yeah, no, like when you first joined, I was like, this is looks like a really cool, unique place. And now that you said that and you're telling me it's woman owned, it's even more incredible that you're now kind of carrying on this legacy of like this woman owned business.
Yes, yes, yes. It's very cool. She was a really interesting lady too, because she was a humanitarian. There's this train track that runs along the backside of the diner. There's no trains that run there currently, but there were a lot of drifters back in the day. So she would do like a food work exchange. So she would have the drifters, they would come in looking for a little bit of work. They'd work for the day, she'd feed them, put them up for the night, and then they'd be back on their way. And, I, for better or worse, sort of have a lot of relationships with people in the community who this is a Section 8 community that we're in.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of like homelessness in this area. So we really try to, help give people odd jobs or ways that they can help out and feed them. So it's almost like the same, like it literally is a mimicking of spirit in a way that I didn't know. There was a man who actually came in and he bought bread one day and he mailed us a letter. And in the letter, he was like, "Had your bread. It was wonderful. I found this article on your diner and I thought you might really like it." And that's actually when I first realized I always knew it was Weed's Diner because being a local person and being it's like a very small town, you know about things, but I never really did the research myself to know more about what that was. I just assumed it was a man.
Wow.
So anyway, this guy sent me this letter that he got from this book, like, historic diners in New Jersey. And it talked about Sadie Weed and everything that she did. And, it was just like, what? It just blew my mind. And it was at a time where I was really thinking about switching locations because, we're really far north in New Jersey. So we're not in, really saturated areas. Well, it definitely was I'm like, well, we're getting a lot of traction, and like we do mobile. The business started as a mobile business 10 years.
Yeah.
So opening up the brick and mortar, this is our second year, and I was really considering like maybe we should be in Jersey City, maybe we should be, somewhere in Morris County. And then I got this letter, and I was like, I'm actually exactly where I'm supposed to be. So,
Yeah.
there are just those moments where you're feeling a little bit lost. Like it's happened very few times, but a couple times in my life, I've been on like I feel like I'm on a path. I feel like I'm totally lost. Then all of a sudden, some sort of sign happens, and you're like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
I absolutely love that. And guys, I know Emily introduced herself at the beginning, but we have Emily Downs here today from Emily's Hearth. And I absolutely like I've been following you on social media and really love everything that you're doing and even more now because I actually didn't realize that you guys were in the diner until you joined. So this has just been like so cool to see this.
Yeah.
Now, Emily, I want to start out like I want to hear about you and like how you were brought up and where and like if you were born in the local area where you are now.
I actually, well, I was born in Newton, but I grew up, I mean, 5 houses down the street. So So yeah, which is very convenient. It's a great commute because even though I went to a boarding high school, in Western Jersey, I went to college in Massachusetts. I lived in San Francisco. I sort of found my way back home because I'm definitely a family person. And I've got my New Jersey tattoo, so it's hard to get out of New Jersey.
That's awesome. So now when did you how long ago did you kind of come back home?
So yeah, it was quite a while ago. So after college, I studied art in college. I went to Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts,
Mhm.
and I moved to San Francisco because I got an internship with the documentary film company. I thought I'd be sort of going more in that direction. And when I was out there, just had to get a job, obviously, because internships are not going to support your life because it's about learning and getting into the industry. On that shoot, I met Alice Waters. We were shooting at Chez Panisse, and she was talking about food, and I was like, I have to get into food. Um, that was I was probably in California for maybe a year. It really wasn't too long. And then
Mhm.
after that, moved back to New Jersey. So that was probably in 2027. No, gosh, it's like time is so crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's so crazy.
That was '06. So probably '07. That was when I came back. And I came back and I worked at Bobolink Dairy. I'm not sure, they're not really pizza oriented, but it was a dairy farm where they made all their own cheeses and they also had a wood burning bread oven. So I went from pizza making to wanting to know a little bit more about bread and traditional ways of making dough and things like that and baking. So that's sort of when I came back to New Jersey, then went to New York City and then back to sort of Sussex County. So it was a little bit of a hip hop here and there.
Very nice. And can you kinda tell me, like, a little bit about how you grew up?
So I am Irish and Italian,
Mhm.
as a lot of New Jersey folks are.
Yep.
So I am super tight with my family. We've got a very big family. There's besides once we start getting into like second cousins and everything, there's, about 45 people at every holiday party of just, you know, aunts and uncles and cousins and yada, yada, yada. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I grew up in rural New Jersey, Sussex County. It's a lot of dairy farms, but obviously pizza making. I grew up making pizza with my cousins and my aunts and my uncles every weekend. So we go to my grandmother's house. She would make big pizzas, and I wish I had a picture to show you. And all of the little cousins would be sitting at her table, and my grandmother would have a little piece of tin foil out and give us all a little bit of dough. And with her old, long stemmed silver olive oil can. I always that just the things that you remember too, the things that stick with you. That olive oil can was one of them. So we'd make
Yeah.
our own little pizzas, and it was just, for me, it wasn't the pizza making was fun, but it's just always been about being with family. But I mean, again, I've been then making pizza since I was born, basically. But yeah, I mean, I never thought I was going to go into food. I have really, my dad was worked as a procurement consultant, which whenever he would try and talk to me about his work, my eyes would just glaze over because the corporate stuff I just could not like relate to really. But my mom was a school teacher. She was a stay-at-home mom with my brother and I were young. And, my mother's just so amazing. She's like Martha Stewart. If my mom had more of a platform, like she would have been famous like Martha Stewart, like beds done to a T, everything made from scratch.
Wow.
Her Christmas decoration, like the way that she decorates her house, her gardens outside, just incredible gardens. I know that's not related to food or anything like that, but so yeah. And I have an older brother. Actually, I'm wearing my older brother. This is his show. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hacks on
Nice.
HBO Max. So my brother obviously has been just a huge leader and inspiration artistically. So a very creative family overall.
Wow, that's so cool. I feel like you and I have almost, like, the same mom, like, my mom was very similar, like, hospital corners on beds, like,
Oh,
everything
yes.
homemade.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. The tightest beds ever where your toes are, like, pressed down.
Yeah, you can't move at night, like,
Yes.
at all.
So, actually, one other thing about my family, which I need to keep relating things back to why we're actually here, which is bread and pizza, but my dad would bake bread incredibly rarely. It was, like, once every, 3 months or something like that, but it was the best thing in the world to me. It was my favorite thing that anybody could have made in the family because there's literally nothing better than fresh, hot, warm bread out of the oven.
Yeah.
So my dad one year decided to take his bread to and enter it into the fair, the county fair. So, and I go in and I look at his ribbons sometimes. So my dad with his plain white Italian loaf won best in show. So he beat out all of the cakes, all of the cookies, all of the pies. And this is rural Sussex County, New Jersey, where
Wow.
it's farmers and homesteaders, you know what I mean? People who take a
Yeah.
lot of pride in I've got the biggest, best tasting garlic, and my hay has the best mix and freshness for the cows. So people take a lot of pride out here in the country and so him getting best in show is just like incredible. So again, there are these ties that it's just in my blood. And again, it just being my favorite food, really, bread and butter. I could have nothing. If I was stranded on a desert island and I could have one thing or two things, bread and butter, and then I would be fine.
Yeah, no, same. I would have bread and butter every day. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, in some parts of, like, the country and the world, bread with butter isn't a thing. Like, my husband, he's from Venezuela, and I'll be like, "Do you want, like, butter with your bread?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, How? Like, what's happening here?"
Interesting. Do they have a different type of bread?
I don't know, he just likes his bread plain, like, he doesn't like butter that much.
Okay. No olive oil?
No, no olive oil, and, like, in our family, it was like, when we had, like, Sunday supper, when we had anything, my mom, there'd be a loaf of homemade bread and butter
Wow.
every single day for dinner.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's a great household to grow up in. Fresh bread every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, it was really cool. Now, okay, so you go out to LA, you come back, somehow you wanna be in food. How did you get into actually doing the pizza?
So it was San Francisco. Not that it matters. It's still California. But so really it was being on this one, working for this documentary film company. It was very small. It was three partners in the company. The person who was the photographer, the videographer, the editor, and I guess the person who was essentially like their sales and like getting all of the, storyline, together.
Yeah.
That person would be. So it was the three of them, and there were two interns, so we were totally hands on. So I went to Chez Panisse, and I'm the camera operator as the one woman's doing the interview, and I'm just standing there and I'm listening to Alice Waters talk about her project called the Edible Schoolyard, which was meant to go to areas or schools where it's they don't have access to great food. So like her restaurants in Berkeley and Oakland, the surrounding area, was a lot of minorities and fast food chains and not a lot of healthy options
Yeah.
for people to eat. And again, like it's like a system that's put in place where it's like, okay, you're going to have to get onto, I don't want to sort of go into all of this stuff, but it's just hearing her talk about this project, let's go into places, low income like areas, dig up a part of an area in the like the recess area, put in a garden, teach children from a very, very young age how to grow food and how to cook food, like even basic stuff,
Yeah.
so then they have the knowledge and the confidence from a very young age to be able to be in control of their nutrition and their health. That's it. So then they're not eating fast food or processed food. And then they have to get on all of these medications. And then, it's just like this systematic thing that's really hard to get out of. So if
Yeah.
we're at a young age, and seeds are inexpensive to buy. So it's like you can start planting your garden and just being in control of that. It really hit me that food was way more important than I ever realized. Because again, I grew up in an Irish and Italian family. Food was getting together with your family. It was something to enjoy and to be celebrated and to appreciate. But I did not understand in the family that I grew up in that it also was a direct correlation to your health and your well-being and your longevity and all of this, your future,
Yeah.
and your how you do in school and how well, all this sort of stuff. I just walked out the door and was like, "Okay, well, I wanna make pizza." I think it was just it sounded fun and cool, and, I was also a sculptor in college. It was very hands-on and, sculptural, and growing up making pizza with my family, I don't know, it was just like, "Let's do that," It wasn't even really I was making pros and con lists. I go from the hip. I go with whatever comes to me, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So I walked into a bunch of pizzerias. I mean, literally every single place that I passed by, went inside, was asking if they were hiring, and they would look at me, and it was always men who were behind the counter making pizza. And they would look at me and they'd say, "Do you want to be the delivery girl?" And I'd say, "No, I want to make the pizza." And they would just look at each other and like smirk, and they'd be like, "No." Everybody did. It was just like
Wow.
not a consideration. Yeah. And it was pizzeria after pizzeria after pizzeria after pizzeria. I mean, I just was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go into every single place that I find and I'm going to ask. And none of them said yes. So I was like, okay, I gave up on it for a minute and I went to go. visiting with one of my friends. They happened to be a baker at Tartine at the time, which is like the best bakery in the country. And so they weren't ready, they weren't finished with work. So I walked down the block, really to the next shop. And I was like, I'll just go into a restaurant. I'll just get my foot in the door with food in general. Like, I don't have to be so specific. And also, I might as well be a server because they make more money anyway. So what I was thinking was a little idiotic, but it's fine. So I go into this restaurant and I was like, hey, are you guys hiring? And this guy looks over the counter at me in the doorway and he goes, do you want to make pizza? I'm like, where where's the pizza sign? Where's the pizza oven? Like, it was a cute little, like, this space, a little cute, quaint restaurant. I didn't think it was a pizzeria. And so it was like, okay, well, that was my first like fate moment where I was like, well, this was meant to be, you know?
Wow.
And so that place was Pizzeria Delfina. They were rated, I think, by Bon Appetit magazine, like top 3 in the country. So I think that was
Wow.
another thing too. Not that I really believe in God or the universe, because, still as an adult, figuring all that stuff out. Because I feel like we have choices, we make choices, you know what I mean? And a lot of things are coincidences. But, it was a moment where I was like, okay, fate was like, "No, no, no, we're gonna start you off with something really, really good." Because I would have been making, working in a regular old pizzeria that might have been totally mediocre rather than one of the top 3 pizzerias in the nation, It's like, okay,
Yeah.
starting high. And I do have a story from that time. I don't know, like, how our time frame is going or what you wanna get from.
No, I mean, that's one of the things that I want to hear, like,
Yeah,
meaningful stories, things that happened.
yeah, okay, so this is sometimes I think about this too. I wanna do, like, maybe little documentary pieces about just the stories that happened to me over my lifetime or period, but when I
Yeah.
was working there, this is just an example of, like, and I didn't understand the level that I was working at, which was really good because I probably would have been freaking out. Um, you know, and that's, like, the beauty and the innocence and the freedom of being young and not having so much awareness.
Yes.
Sometimes I wonder if I can get that back, just forget it all.
Yeah, me too.
So, so I'm making pizzas one day there and just doing my thing and like whatever. And it was so cool too because it was my first time working in a restaurant and I was also I had 10 or 11 varsity letters in high school. Like, I was very athletic, and the kitchen environment just being so high paced and, like, it was like a dance. You're in like a totally limited space and working around other people at a really, really fast pace. Like, I loved it. I was all about it. I was like, okay, this is for me. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so, just working one day, do my thing. And it was like an open kitchen style a little bit. So we were making pizzas, and in front of us, there was a counter where guests would sit, and the pizza maker would serve the guests who were sitting at that counter. So, I have this guy and his lady or a woman, eating. And so I serve them their pizzas, and I'm doing my thing. And my manager comes in, the guy who hired me, and he says he pulls me over to the side, and the side, so there's like the counter and then a space to get through, and then there's like the kitchen area. So you're like right there. So he pulls me to the side, and he pulls me to the side and he goes, that better have been, excuse, can I curse here?
Yeah.
Okay. He goes,
Yes.
that better have been the best fucking pizza you've ever made. I was like, okay, why? He goes, do you know who that guy is? It's like, no. He goes, that's Thomas fucking Keller. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm making pizzas for the most famous chef in the industry. Like, and I
Oh
have
my
no idea.
god.
I have no clue who he is. Even when he tells me, I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
and then eventually, like, you start to understand what's happening. It's like, my God, but I get it too, as, in my position now, a little bit being like, that better have been the best fucking pizza you ever made because do you know who you just served? But yeah, so I was just like surrounded by the best in the industry and learned from some incredible people out in San Francisco. And then, after that, I was really interested in learning more because they were amazing chefs. So their Italian restaurant, it was structured like a traditional Italian restaurant and pizzeria, but it was super, super high end.
Yeah.
Italian restaurant was like top 100 in Zagat's. Uh, so they were amazing chefs, and all the toppings were just like the best local ingredients, fresh hand stretched mozzarella, and, just farmers like literally delivering fresh. And that was really, I mean, California, everything grows all the time. The farmers markets there are just like insane. You
Yeah.
go down to the ferry building, and it's like there's like 15 different types of edible grapes that, here, there, you go to the grocery store, there's three, it's like,
Mhm.
just the variety and all of the nuts and everything's fresh and in season. That really, like, really expanded my mind. That was the start into food, was being in California and San Francisco, one of the best pizzerias out there. And just like, it was amazing. I really, really got blessed by starting with such a rich experience in food and in the food industry. But to be said, like, to that note, I really wanted to learn more about the dough, because
Mhm.
they did a good job with the dough, but that was not really their thing. Like, even myself, I don't consider myself a chef. I consider myself a baker.
Okay.
I really find that there's a difference there, because there
Yeah.
are really two different ways of approaching food. Cooking, it's much more, it can be, really is much more improvisational. You can change it as you go. With baking, you really can't. You have a formula that you have to follow, and then there are changes you can make at a certain point, but really it's much more of you have a base structure that you really have to understand and grasp. And, if you don't, then your bread doesn't work out. You can't go back and change it. You have to start all over.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to learn more about bread baking and the dough and dough making. So I got my woofing, and again, I'm in my 20s. I got my woofing catalog, and I'm like, oh, should I go to Arizona and live in a cave dwelling and learn how to make canoes, or should I go, like,
Yeah.
literally, that one was, like, really intriguing to me. Do I go to the horse farm and just ride horseback all day and, like, wrangle, cows? That sounds pretty good. But anyway, so I ended up coming back to New Jersey and, started working at Bobolink Dairy, and they made French-style cheeses. They had a mixed herd of cows, so they made cheese, but they also had a traditional wood-burning bread oven. So this oven is, like, 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and 6 feet tall, of all brick. So all solid brick. The whole thing's completely solid. And then on the inside, there's, an area that's maybe, a foot tall by, I don't know, maybe 4 feet wide and 4 feet deep, or a little less. 3 feet
Mhm.
wide, 3 feet deep. So there's a little narrow space in the middle for baking. And the way that this oven works, there's no switch to turn it on. You have to uh, burn a fire in the oven overnight for about 8 to 12 hours. So all of that heat that's burned over that period of time is stored in all of the brick. And then that is what actually bakes the bread in the oven throughout the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very cool design, and, it's amazing. This is like traditional bread baking. There wasn't obviously gas and electric ways of hooking your stuff up. You had
Yeah.
to burn wood and, do this method. But again, there wasn't a live fire in the oven at the same time. You had to let that all burn out. The coals burn down. You clean out the oven, clean the floor, put the door on so it stores the heat, and then you start mixing all of your doughs. And then you structure it, because obviously the oven's going to be much hotter when you first start baking in it. So you have to do thinner, smaller breads in the beginning, and then you start getting to bigger and bigger and bigger loaves towards the end of the day. And at the end of the day, because the temperature is going to consistently start dropping, because
Yeah.
as you put bread in there, it's going to cool it down because it's sucking that heat out of the oven. Until the very end of the day, you can start baking pies and then dehydrating stuff and, all that.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool, I mean, that was just amazing to me too, because, going from a fast-paced restaurant to this totally different lifestyle where, and we were involved with everything, which I absolutely love, herding cows, making cheese, doing the bake, feeding the pigs, go collecting chicken eggs, all this sort of stuff. And, oh, the cows got out. We got to run down the street and herd them back in. We're blocking traffic, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It was an amazing, incredible experience. I mean, one of the best of my life. But it's constant, consistent work. You can't really leave the farm. Uh, yeah. So then after that, I wanted to learn more about uh, production, like more bread baking, but in like a higher production, more normal. I mean, again, I loved being countryside and working with the wood oven, but I also like, I was trying to like, I really, and again, I don't know if it was intentional, but I was sort of going back and forth between all these different styles of doing things.
Yeah.
So then I ended up apprenticing with Jim Leahy of Sullivan Street Bakery, and he makes bread for all of the best restaurants in New York City. He has a huge baking facility in Hell's Kitchen, and he also had a pizzeria in Chelsea called Co. or Company.
Okay.
So I worked with him, worked at his pizzeria, but really worked in the bakery mostly. And that was really also amazing. I mean, I was making all of his show breads for the Martha Stewart show and for the Today show when he was on those
Wow.
productions or whatever, designing specialty equipment for, because I also, being an, I don't know, it's just, that was great for me too, because it was a lot of different things like making specialty breads, but also like I designing certain pieces of equipment for certain types of breads that he was doing. Like he does this big, it's called Bianca. It's like a 6 foot long, like Roman focaccia, like a really thin, crispy focaccia. So I helped design a table where that sort of work could be done efficiently. What else? So then, and he was incredible. Like he is famous for his no-knead method of baking, which I really do. That's exactly what we do here. We do an overnight fermentation on a lot of our bread doughs, but the pizza dough that we make, we cold ferment that for about a week or two, depending on how busy we are. If we're super busy, pretty quickly, but ideally, we're trying to get to like a 2-week fermentation on our pizza doughs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then after that, I wanted to learn more about traditional pizza making. So I worked with Roberto Caporuscio at Kesté, that was also in New York City, and that was
Mhm.
learning true Neapolitan style pizza making. So wood fired oven, Caputo flour. Like I'm sure you've gone to a Neapolitan pizzeria, and it's like the same. It's always the same pizzas.
Yeah.
Your margarita, your Regina, your salsiccia, your capricciosa, yada, 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 yada. So, that was another really amazing experience of being in a fast paced, busy restaurant right on Bleecker Street, right across from John's Pizzeria and right across from Murray's Cheese. You're sort of catty corner between these two places, but then
Mhm.
also working with a traditional wood fired oven, where when I was making pizza in San Francisco, it was, a gas oven, like standard deck, regular pizza deck oven, you know?
Yeah.
So definitely, experimented or learned all of these different styles and ways of making pizza or different types of ingredients. And I really, for what we do, I sort of picked and choose what I liked the most or what, synchronized with my style and put those things together to create what we do at Emily's Hearth.
That's so cool. So, did you come to a point where you're like, "Okay, I've been all these places, I've learned all these different methods and these different things. I'm now ready to open Emily's Hearth."
Yes. Well, there was definitely a moment. I don't love talking about the whole thing because, there's like some personal stuff, but basically, to not go into too much detail, I came back to New Jersey and I was married at the time, had a baby. He turned 1. The marriage didn't work out. So we divorced and I became a single mom with a 1-year old. And
I've been there.
oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
that was the moment where I was like, well, and there was a point in my marriage before I had my son where I was waiting tables just to make some extra cash because, it just, again, I was back in Sussex County with family, a little closer to home, especially, at that point in my life. And after I gave birth to my son and, all that stuff happened, I was like, I'm never waiting tables ever again.
Yeah.
And I've literally worked with the best people in my industry across both baking and pizza making. I've worked with literally the best from coast to coast. And even in Italy, I made pizza at a few restaurants in Italy. And, it's like I have all of these skills. It's more like I was so lucky, like that first day in San Francisco where I'm walking down the street, going into all of these, probably shitty pizzerias being like, "Can I get a job with you?" "No? Okay." And then just
Yeah.
my path being like, "Nope, we're gonna bring you right to the cream of the crop, because this is where you should be." It's like I can't I just feel like I was too shy and too not confident and secure in myself to go out and do it on my own. But then once I had my son and was on my own with him, I was like, can't stop this girl. Like I'm doing whatever I have to do to bring all this shit together because I'm
Yeah.
good. Like my skills, I remember when I left San Francisco, I was like, okay, I'm going back to New Jersey. I'm going to work on this farm. Like I'm going to not be here anymore and, I'm making pizzas on my last day. Sorry to jump all the way back to the story.
It's okay.
one of the managers comes in and he's standing next to me and he's just looking at me. He's looking at me and he's like mimicking what I'm doing. And I look over, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, the owner of the restaurant told me to come in here and make pizzas exactly like you do.
Okay.
And that was a moment for me. I was like, okay, go Emily, but it's
Yeah.
like little things like that, and again, like I more was just like, I love this. I'm doing what, because they used to call me. So they used to call me, this is again, the first restaurant I ever worked in. So my nicknames were Messily and Sloppily.
Oh,
Even when I put the tomato sauce on, I'd be whipping the tomato sauce around and it would just be like splattering everywhere. But actually, because of the oven that it baked in, it created a contrast in color on the crust. So the tomato sauce getting onto the edge of the crust created like almost like the char that a Neapolitan pizza would. So it was more visually appealing, actually, So then it was just like this guy coming in. So I knew there were little moments like that where I was like, oh, okay, like I'm good at this. Like I am good at this, and just being in all these other places and the other things that happened throughout my story where it's like, okay, I'm good at this. Like I have this skill and,
yeah.
and you can tell yourself that, but also inevitably, I would always be like, there's no way I could do that. There's no way, but then all of a sudden when you become a mom and, you're not going to go back to waiting tables ever again. And you really evaluate like, okay, like I can do all of this. Like it's now or never. Like what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
And not that my message is go out and get yourself pregnant, girls. Then you'll live your dream. That's not exactly the message, but
Yeah.
I needed something that I couldn't turn my back on. You know what I mean? Because I could turn my back on myself all day.
Sure.
So I
I get that.
Yeah, so I mean, having my son definitely gave me the motivation to finally just step into my skills and just be confident and just go out there and start my business. And I started at a really small level. I was just doing weekend work. I got into two farmers markets, one in New Jersey, in Sparta, New Jersey, and one in Warwick, New York.
Uh-huh.
And so my mom, who's a teacher and loves children, thank God. She would watch my son on the weekends, and then my father would come out with me and he would be my fornio. He would spin pizzas and help me fill pizza boxes. And, so that's really,
Nice.
it started as a little like, and I'm so grateful for my parents. There's no way, not only just my son being born and that giving me the gusto to finally do it and the courage to go out there. I still would not be able to do it if I didn't have the support from my parents.
Yeah, 100%. Now take me through, you went from pop-ups and mobile to brick and mortar. So how did this whole thing come about?
Yeah. So when you have a mobile business, you are required to operate out of a licensed kitchen. So I definitely hopped around from place to place, and I had a great friend who had a restaurant in Warwick, Fanny's, and she let me use her restaurant to make all my pizza dough and prep all my stuff, which was incredible and really generous of her. And, like VFW halls. And there are times where you just like, so, tried VFW hall, try to get things a little bit closer to home. And then this old diner, a couple of my friends, I didn't really know them well at the time. They opened this place up as a smoothie bar and fermentation cafe. So they would ferment
Mhm.
all of their own vegetables and beverages and things like that. And, I live right down the street and we made an agreement and they rented me a room in the back of the diner. So they had this open and and kudos to them. They really created a lot of energy around this place and, really brought it back on the map, which was really great. But I just parked my ovens and there's, a lot of space here. So I parked my ovens out in the back, get my wood deliveries. In the beginning, I'm literally like when I first started my business, I think I recently sent some of my team members a picture of, my essentially like my pantry, my back pantry, which is like an old staircase and with sacks of flour on it. Because when I first started my business, I was doing it out of my house,
Yeah.
when you're really small. But then eventually, yeah, so it was renting this room from them. And then they decided to move to a different location. And so the diner was not being operated. I was still using it as my licensed kitchen, but I did not open it up as a pizzeria or bakery until maybe a year or two later, and then finally decided to give it a go. I mean, again, I didn't have another kid, so it wasn't like that was the impetus, but I almost got kicked out of here and I was like, okay, we're opening now. I mean, I unfortunately lived my life a little bit by pressure. When
Yeah,
there's pressure, then I'll make some stuff happen. So I'm trying to figure out how to not always get myself into a difficult situation to motivate it to make
I
the
get
next.
it.
But you know, so yeah, so the landlord, there was a rumor going about that they were going to sell this plot because it's really the plot. It's a few buildings, a big parking lot, and it's right on the corner of Route 23, which is a major highway in New Jersey. So it's a great location. So there was a rumor that Starbucks was going to buy this. So that
Wow.
was my next impetus. I was like, well, we'll open up, we'll gain a little bit of traction. So if we have to move, we'll be like, okay, we were here, now we're here, or whatever. So luckily that hasn't come to fruition and hopefully doesn't for a very long time. So yeah, so now we're open. This is our second year and it's great. We're just really starting to get some traction. We've had a few write-ups recent, which I think has really helped us out. So I'm hoping that we have a really busy, successful year here because I mean the space is just so cool and unique. And I really would like the atmosphere to be filled, and the spirit, because the spirit really comes alive when there are people in here, you know what I mean? Like, of course you can be here and feel it, but it's just, it's really cool too to finally be like, welcome to my place. Welcome to my place, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I do love that being able to be like, here's our lighting and here's our soundtrack and here's what it looks like and this is what it feels like. And, you know, being an artist, like that's something for me where it's about the whole experience, not necessarily just the food, which also is incredibly important, obviously. But yeah, so I could never not when I was first looking at locations, because I was always looking at locations, and there are a lot of places that make sense, like right in a strip mall. But my dad being very practical, he's like, this makes sense. There are other businesses around. You could attract people really easily. Da 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 da. You don't have to worry about plowing anything. You don't have to worry about your landscaping, like all this sort of stuff. I mean, I get it makes sense, but also I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm ever gonna have my business in a strip mall. Like I just personally as an artist, it's like, no, I just can't. I can't do it. Yeah, maybe
Yeah, no, I get
I
it.
don't know what that is, but in my mind, it's just like takes away from the uniqueness of something. And I'm all about the one.
Yeah. No, you're totally right about that for sure. Now, like if someone wants to come in, like when are you guys open? When can they get pizzas?
Yes. So we are open. We have a very limited hours currently. We're open Fridays and Saturdays. So we're open Friday from 4 until 9. I've been thinking recently about opening a little later on Fridays and Saturdays, especially since we're starting to get a little bit busier. We have a very small team of people, so we have to figure all that stuff out. But yeah, currently every Friday from 4 to 9 and we have live music every single Friday, a range of all different types of music from jazz to country to rock to blah, 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 blah. And every Saturday we're open from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. And we have fresh bread every Saturday.
That's so cool. I love everything about your story. It's just the experience, the travel, the authenticity, where
Yeah,
you landed, everything about it's just so, so cool.
thank you. That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of
It's just,
course. So guys, I want you to go and follow her. It's emily's.hearth on Instagram. Where else can they find you, follow you, any other social media, anywhere else you'd like them to go?
I mean, we're definitely on Facebook.
Okay.
I definitely have one employee. We had a TikTok for a moment. I just, the format's hard for me or whatever. So really Instagram is like the main thing that we do social media wise. Is there anything else I should be doing? I don't even know.
I mean, that's up to you. I will tell you, Instagram's a big one, and your pizza looks amazing and, collaboration stuff like this. But I feel like you just have so many elements. Like when I come to New Jersey, I'm stopping in to see you.
Ooh,
Yeah.
good. You got it. Where do you live?
So I'm in Tampa now, but I go back and forth from, like, here to, like, Jersey, PA, because my
Okay,
family's in Jersey.
nice. I was
Yeah,
just in Florida for the week. It's nice to have that weather.
absolutely. Emily, thank you so much for being a guest.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor.